With us in studio is Jeremy Saltan, the Director of English Operations for Naftali Bennett's Yamina Party. And joining us is Yair Zivan. He's the Foreign Affairs Advisor and International Media Spokesperson for Yair Lapid, and he speaks to us from Tel Aviv. And Yair, let me just start with you. How satisfied are you with what went down today in the Knesset? Are you convinced that this motion is going to go through to its final? This Knesset is going to be dissolved, and either we go to most likely go to elections, or even if it's remotely possible, some alternative form of coalition?
Well, I think we've made today was a good first step. The process needs to play itself out, but I think it can, and I think sadly it should. Nobody thinks elections are a good idea during the corona crisis, but the choice now between an election and what is without a doubt the worst government in Israel's history is an easy one, I think. And that's why the majority of the Knesset, 61, so an absolute majority, voted in favor today of dissolving the Knesset. We will keep pushing the process forward to go to an election. And I think on this, Jeremy and I will probably agree that we need an election as soon as possible. It needs to be short. Everybody knows who the main players are. We need to go to an election, let the public decide, and build a government that will work, because this government has been, from day one, an absolute disaster. And it's the Israeli public that's paying the price.
All right, I'm Jeremy. I'm going to, first of all, respond to Yair's comment. Do you feel or you agree the time is now to go to elections? And I want you to react to Prime Minister Netanyahu's answer, or the question that was asked him. Would he offer Naftali Bennett a similar deal that he offered to Benny Gantz to become to be an alternate prime minister, or to become a rotation deal with going to prime minister?
You know, the nation of Israel is in a lot of trouble. We're hurting right now. What we need in order to go ahead and put our economy back on track and really combat this coronavirus is to go ahead and see a change of leadership. I just don't see Netanyahu being the guy. Look, he wants to talk about vaccines. He wants to talk about moving the election to a date that is convenient for him. Let's be honest, and we've known this all along. Benny Gantz was never going to get the rotation. There was never a unity government. This government is, I have to agree with Yair here, practically the worst government we've seen, and this is coming at a time where we expect people to be together. This is a national crisis. Instead of Israeli government responding like it did in the beginning of the state in 48, 49, in 67, 73, or the financial crisis in 84, we see the coalition fighting amongst themselves more than they are with the opposition. I mean, we go ahead and we're submitting this bill. It got the 61 votes in the preliminary reading. We have to see what happens next week, but let's look at this. This is pretty amazing. The coalition is voting with the opposition to disperse themselves. It's over.
All right, gentlemen, let's hear, I guess, from your opposition right now. Here's Nir Barkat, a lawmaker of the Likud party.
Right now is not a good time to go for elections. They're thinking selfishly about their party's future. And it's very unfortunate. I would prefer that in times of crisis, they rethink their position, enable less of a deadlock in the government, and flow with the Prime Minister Netanyahu, because that's what the country right now needs.
Well, Yair, since your party brought this no-confidence motion, respond to Nir Barkat. Now is not the time for elections, given all that is happening in the country.
Well, not only do we think we need to go to elections, I think Nir Barkat himself will acknowledge that this government has been a disaster. He's said as much publicly about the economic policy of this government. And so to keep this government afloat purely for the sake of keeping it afloat, while businesses are collapsing every single day, 200 businesses on average every day closing in this country, we're up to nearly 3,000 people who have died during the corona crisis of corona in this country. I think that's the real issue. That's what we need to deal with. And this government simply can't do it. If there was a functioning government, I think even the opposition would get behind it and say, you know what, let's keep going and get through this crisis. But instead, we have a government that's failing, and the people paying the price are the citizens of Israel. And so it's the right thing and the responsible thing to do now, to offer an alternative, not to sit with Netanyahu again, because it's clear there won't be an improvement under Netanyahu. And anybody who supports Netanyahu in the next election will get more of the same. And so what we have to do is provide a very clear alternative that says there's a different way to move Israel forward, to get out of the crisis, to rebuild the economy, and to start putting the country back on track.
Right. Let's listen to, of course, there are other plays in this political game. Let's take a listen to another member of the coalition from the ultra-Orthodox United Torah Judaism Party.
You know, in the Israeli parliament, there's another at least 4 or 5 sessions between the vote today until any decision is going to be made. Okay, it's going down to the committee, it's coming back to here, going down to the committee again and coming back. The 23rd of December, if the budget doesn't pass of 2020, we're going for elections anyhow. So it's a nice statement, but it doesn't really mean anything more than that. It has to. Gantz is going to have to make his decision if he wants to go to elections and to commit suicides and be out of the Israeli politics, or find a way to work together as a partner. And that's a decision that he has, I believe, the next 23 days to decide.
Jeremy, is Yitzhak Pinterest wrong there? Benny Gantz does have to make a decision that your party and your party leader could end up taking his place, or likely will, as the main alternative to Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Well, obviously, we've all seen the suitability polls for Prime Minister where Netanyahu and Bennett are going neck and neck. Of course, Naftali Bennett has not yet officially gone ahead and announced or declared his intention to seek the prime ministership. But let's see, as we've heard previous speakers, are we going to have an election? I remember in 2012 with Shaul Mofaz, when we had that preliminary reading, even the first reading for having the early election, then he decided to go ahead and join the Netanyahu government at the last minute. Benny Gantz could still go ahead and do a U-turn. I saw his response to the Netanyahu speech. It doesn't look like we're going there. But this is Israeli politics. Anything can happen. And yes, of course, the possibility of Naftali Bennett as prime minister, and the question of, is Naftali Bennett going to bring in UTJ or Yesh Atid into his next coalition, that might be the type of conversation we're going to have in this upcoming election campaign.
Right. In just about 30 seconds left there, two of our guests this evening have suggested Benny Gantz even breaking away from blue and white, like Ehud Barak did with Labor, and staying on as defense minister. How plausible, given what he's done in the past, especially to your party, do you see that theory?
Well, I hope not. I think he's made one mistake too many already. I hope now he's realized he's made that mistake and he'll rejoin. Look, we've called very clearly for Kahol Lavan to come and rejoin Yesh Atid. There is only one clear alternative to Netanyahu, and that will be Yair Lapid leading the centrist alternative. In the end, ultimately, Naftali Bennett, I think, and he refuses to say he won't, will end up joining a Netanyahu government. So it'll be between Lapid and Netanyahu when we go to these next elections. And what we saw today was the first time that the opposition, in living memory, managed to organize a majority, an absolute majority. We united everybody from Naftali Bennett to
we'll have to cut it off there. You're going to have some interesting conversations with Jeremy, Yair Zivan, Jeremy Saltan. Thank you.